The table was already crowded with plates and noise by the time my brother said it. Forks paused midair. Someone laughed too quickly. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic hung heavy, warm and familiar, the kind of meal that's supposed to mean safety. My daughter sat beside me on the hard dining chair, legs swinging, shoulders slightly hunched the way they get when she's trying to disappear without moving. My name is Hannah. I'm 30 years old. My brother leaned back, confident in the way people are when they've never had to measure their words. Your daughter will never be anything more than average, he said, smiling like he'd just shared a harmless truth. Be grateful if she even finishes high school. The room burst into laughter. Not cruel exactly. Comfortable. The kind that assumes no real damage has been done. I felt my body go very still. That familiar role clicked into place. The reliable one. The one who smooths things over. The one who pays and waits and lets comments slide because keeping the peace is easier than breaking it. My daughter stared down at her food. She didn't cry. She didn't look at me. She just pushed peas into a neat line, concentrating the way children do when they're trying not to be noticed. The overhead light caught in her hair, and for a second I saw her at 4, standing on a stool in our kitchen, proudly reading labels out loud because she wanted to show me she could. I tasted something bitter and metallic at the back of my throat. My mother murmured something about dessert. My aunt reached for her glass. Someone changed the subject halfway, then laughed again when it didn't quite land. Silence has a way of agreeing when you don't interrupt it. I thought about the after-school program. About the check I wrote every month without being asked. About my nephew's backpack, the way he'd run up to me after practice and show me new drills, proud and breathless. I'd covered it because I could. Because I was the reliable one. Because family helps family. I set my fork down. The sound was soft but decisive, metal against ceramic. Then I'll stop covering your son's after-school program, I said. My voice surprised me. Not raised. My brother froze. Actually froze, mid-smile, mid-breath. The laughter collapsed in on itself, confused. My mother's eyes flicked to me, sharp with warning. Don't do this here, she murmured, the way she always does when the truth threatens to arrive uninvited. I looked at my daughter. She had finally looked up, eyes wide, searching my face for cues. For permission. For safety. I felt the weight of years press in, of meals like this, jokes like that, checks written quietly so nothing ever had to change. A memory drifted through me. My brother at 16 failing math, my parents asking me to tutor him because I was good at explaining things. Me at 19 working extra shifts so he could keep his spot on a team. Me at 26. Smiling through another comment because it wasn't worth the argument. The reliable one. The room waited. Plates cooled. Someone cleared their throat. My brother's eyes darted to my mother, then back to me, calculation replacing confidence. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't add anything else. I just sat there, breathing evenly, hand resting on my daughter's back, feeling her shoulders rise and fall. For the first time at that table, the peace wasn't mine to keep. No one spoke right away. The silence spread across the table, thick and unfamiliar, settling into the spaces where laughter had just been. The roasted chicken cooled. Gravy congealed along the edges of plates. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked too loudly, each second marking how long it took for discomfort to be acknowledged. My brother recovered first. He always does. He laughed again, shorter this time, the sound brittle. He said I was being dramatic. He said it was a joke. He said everyone knew he didn't mean it like that. The words came fast, stacked on top of each other, trying to rebuild the old balance. My mother reached for her napkin and folded it once, then again. A habit she's had for as long as I can remember. Something to do with her hands when she wants things to smooth over without saying why. She repeated herself, quieter now. Not here. My daughter's chair creaked as she shifted. Her knees bumped the underside of the table. She still hadn't touched her food. I felt the small tension in her back through my palm, the way children hold themselves when they're waiting to see if the adult they trust will stay solid or bend. I thought about all the other times I had bent. A memory surfaced, slow and uninvited. My brother at 12, throwing a tantrum because he didn't make a team. My parents asking me to talk to him because I was good at calming him down. Another one followed, me at 24, covering a utility bill he'd forgotten, because it was easier than listening to him spiral. Each moment slid neatly into place, forming a pattern I'd lived inside without naming. I was the reliable one. The one who absorbs. The one who fixes quietly. My brother leaned forward now, elbows on the table, lowering his voice as if that made it reasonable. He said my nephew depended on that program. He said it wasn't fair to punish a child over an adult conversation. He said family doesn't keep score. The irony sat between us, heavy and obvious. I told him calmly that I wasn't punishing anyone. I was choosing where my support went. I said words matter, especially when children are listening. I didn't look at him when I said it. I looked at my daughter. She was watching me closely now, eyes flicking between my face and his, trying to understand what was happening beneath the surface. I saw myself in her then, 8 years old, 12, 15, learning how to read rooms instead of trusting them. My mother finally spoke again, sharper this time. She said I was embarrassing everyone. She said this wasn't the time. She said we could talk about it later. Later has always been her favorite place to put things she doesn't want to confront. The table shifted as my aunt stood to clear plates that no one had finished. Someone offered dessert again, louder, hopeful. The normal routines tried to reassert themselves like muscle memory kicking in after a stumble. My brother's voice softened. He said he was sorry if it came out wrong. The conditional apology hovered there, waiting to be accepted so everything could return to the way it was. I felt the old reflex rise. The urge to take it, to nod, to make this easier for everyone. It would have been simple. A few words. A small smile. Peace restored. Glad I stayed quiet. Silence stretched again, but this time it felt intentional. Tozen. I felt my daughter lean closer to me, her shoulder pressing into my side. I wrapped my arm around her without thinking, grounding us both. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shouting. I was just no longer participating in the performance. The reliable one doesn't usually stop. But when she does, the room notices. And something in me knew this moment wasn't finished yet. After dinner, the house loosened in the way it always does when tension pretends to have passed. Chairs scraped back. Plates clinked into the sink. Someone turned the music on a little too loud, as if volume could drown out what hadn't been resolved. The smell of dessert, warm sugar and baked apples, floated through the room, clashing with the heaviness still sitting in my chest. My brother cornered me near the hallway, away from the table, away from witnesses. His voice dropped into something sharp and familiar. He said I'd blindsided him. He said I'd made him look bad in front of everyone. He said I knew how hard things were for him right now. His words weren't apologetic. They were transactional. I listened without interrupting. That surprised him. A memory drifted in while he talked. Me at 18 standing in the same hallway while he complained about consequences that weren't fair. Me nodding then, offering solutions, absorbing his frustration like it was part of my role. I'd learned early that listening was easier than being listened to. I told him quietly that what he said at the table mattered more than how he felt now. I told him I wouldn't subsidize disrespect, not toward me and especially not toward my child. My voice didn't waver. His did. He accused me of overreacting again. He said my daughter was too young to understand. He said kids are resilient. I felt something tighten in my jaw, not rage, not grief, but clarity. Resilience has always been the excuse used to justify damage after it's done. My mother appeared at the end of the hallway, arms crossed, face drawn. She said we were ruining the evening. She said my brother didn't mean it. She said family shouldn't draw lines over words. I looked at her and remembered being a child myself, being told to ignore comments, to let things go, to be the bigger person even when I was the smallest one in the room. I understood then how these patterns survive. Not through cruelty but through minimization. My daughter tugged lightly at my sleeve. I knelt so we were eye level. Her voice was barely above a whisper. She asked if she'd done something wrong. That question landed harder than anything else that night. I told her no. I told her she was smart and kind and capable of becoming anything she chose. I told her that no one gets to decide her limits for her. I felt my brother's stare burn into the side of my face as I said it. I didn't turn. When we stood, I gathered our things without rush. The room watched, uncertain now, recalculating. My brother muttered something under his breath. My mother sighed, long and weary, as if this was an inconvenience she hadn't planned for. At the door, my brother said we'd talk about this later. I nodded, non-committal. Later has never fixed anything for us. Outside, the night air felt cooler, cleaner. I buckled my daughter into her seat and closed the door gently. As I walked around to the driver's side, I realized my hands weren't shaking. My heart was steady. I wasn't storming out. I was stepping away with intention. And I knew the real aftermath hadn't arrived yet. The drive home was quiet. Street lights passed in steady intervals, washing the car in brief gold before giving way to shadow again. My daughter watched them through the window, chin resting on her jacket, the rhythm of it slowly calming her breathing. The smell of leftover dinner clung faintly to our coats, garlic, sugar, something burnt at the edges. Familiar but no longer comforting. At a stoplight she asked if she was really average. The question was soft. The kind children ask when they're already bracing for the answer. I pulled over instead of responding too quickly. The engine idled. Somewhere nearby, leaves scraped along the curb, dry and restless. I turned toward her and told her the truth. I told her average is a word people use when they're afraid of someone else's potential. I told her she didn't need to prove anything to anyone at that table. I told her she was allowed to take up space. She nodded, absorbing it the way children do, quietly, seriously. Then she asked if we could get ice cream. We did. The next morning the messages started. My brother first. Long defensive. He said I'd misunderstood him. He said I'd hurt his son. He said family helps family. My mother followed, gentler but heavier. She said she wished I'd handled it differently. She said my brother was sensitive right now. She said she didn't want things to be like this. I read them once. I didn't reply. Later that week the program emailed to confirm the payment change. Neutral language. Clear dates. I forwarded it to my brother with a single sentence explaining the end date. No commentary. No lecture. Just information. His response came quickly, anger first, then panic, then bargaining. He offered to apologize. He offered to talk. He offered to be better. I recognized the pattern. Improvement promised only when access is threatened. I sat at the kitchen table while my daughter did her homework, pencils spread out, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. The late afternoon light poured in through the window, warm and forgiving. I watched her work through a problem slowly, confidently, unbothered by imagined limits. That's when I understood something simple and irreversible. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're instructions for how to stay. If you've ever been the one who pays to keep the peace, the one who swallows comments so children don't have to hear them, you know how expensive silence can be. Some families don't protect the most vulnerable. They protect the loudest. I still love my family. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the direction of my loyalty. It no longer bends away from my child. That night, I tucked her into bed and listened as she told me what she wanted to be when she grew up. 3 different things, all ambitious, all possible. I kissed her forehead and turned off the light. In the quiet, I felt something settle into place. Not pride. Not anger. Alignment. I didn't raise my voice at that table. I raised the standard. Some peace costs too much.